The sky is a very special place. The daytime sky is a beautiful blue. It has lots of interesting things to see. Let's think about some of the things we see in the sky. What star do we see in the daytime sky? The sun. Did you know that the sun is a star and that it is the star nearest the Earth? What else do we often see in the daytime sky? Clouds. What sometimes falls from the clouds? Rain, little drops of water. After a rain, what sometimes appears in the sky that's exceptionally pretty? A big, beautiful rainbow. During the day, the sun is high in the sky. As evening comes, the sun slides down the western sky, and as it sets, we see sunsets. Sunsets are beautiful. Slowly, as the sky gets darker, the stars appear. They look like thousands of twinkling jewels in the sky. Did you know you can use stars to make pretend pictures? Pretend pictures in the sky are called constellations. Can all of you say the word constellation? Try it. Good. Say it again. Now, let's look for some constellations in the sky. Look at the southern sky. Here is a constellation called Orion the Hunter. Orion is a man, so we are going to pretend to see a man in the sky. 2 stars make up his shoulders. 3 stars are his belt. From his belt hangs a sword. 2 bright stars are his legs. Can everyone pretend to see Orion? Look at the picture. Here are the 2 stars of his shoulders, the 3 stars of his belt, his sword, and his legs. Orion's belt points upward to Taurus the bull. See this group of stars that makes a V in the sky? That's the face of the bull. These 2 stars are the very tips of his horns. Can everyone pretend to see the face of a bull? This is what he looks like. See how the V makes a face? Orion's belt points down to a dog. His name is Canis Major, or the big dog. This very bright star is in his head. These stars are his back. These stars are his legs. Here is his picture. Orion, Taurus, and the big dog are in the southern sky. Now we want to look at some constellations in the northern sky. The most important constellation in the entire sky is in the northern sky. It is called the Big Dipper. A dipper is a cup with a long handle. The Big Dipper is made of 7 very bright stars. 3 are the handle, 4 are the cup. See it? Here is a picture. See how these 3 stars are the handle, and these 4 are the cup? Can everyone see a cup with a long handle? Can all of you say the name of this constellation? Good, the Big Dipper. A long time ago, this constellation was very important to a special group of children. "200 years ago, black children who lived in the southern United States were slaves. It was bad to be a slave. Being a slave meant you belonged to a white person called the master. Slaves had to do exactly what the master said to do. A slave had to live where the white person lived. A slave couldn't go anywhere without permission. Children who were slaves didn't get to go to school or get to play. They had to work. Sometimes they didn't get enough food or enough warm clothing. Much worse, they were sometimes beaten. These children could even be sold to another master and sent away from their parents. They had no freedom to decide things for themselves. Being a slave was a horrible way of life. Many slaves ran away. If they could run away as far north as Canada, they were free, and they could decide for themselves how to live their lives. Slaves that escaped had to walk all the way to Canada. They traveled at night so that no one could find them. It was a dangerous and long trip. They used the Big Dipper to guide them on the trip. Because they knew that the Big Dipper was in the northern sky, they knew that if they walked straight towards the Dipper, they would be walking north towards Canada. The slaves in Alabama and Mississippi taught their children a special song about the Big Dipper. The song explained how to use the Big Dipper to escape to freedom. The song starts like this.
When the sun comes back and the first quail calls, follow the drinking gourd.
The slaves had noticed something about the sun. In December, at noon, the sun is here in the sky. 1 month later, in January, the sun is here. In February, it is here. During the winter and spring, the sun is a little higher and higher in the sky each day at noon. In the summer and fall, the sun is lower and lower in the sky at noon. The words, when the sun comes back, mean the winter, when the sun is higher in the sky each day at noon. Quail are birds that live in Canada in the summer and fall. In winter, they move to the southern United States. So every year, slave children living in the South heard the quail call in winter. When the slaves looked at the Big Dipper, they pretended to see a drinking gourd. A drinking gourd is a gourd that can be made into a cup. Slaves made drinking cups from gourds, and they called the Big Dipper the drinking gourd. Follow the drinking gourd means walk towards the Big Dipper. So this part of the song told the slaves to escape in the winter. In the winter, the sun is coming back or rising higher in the sky, and the quail are calling. Listen to the next part of the song.
For the old man is awaiting for to carry you to freedom if you follow the drinking gourd.
These lines told the escaping slaves that if they continued to walk towards the drinking gourd, they eventually would meet an old man who would help them escape. The song continues.
The river bank makes a very good road. The dead trees will show you the way. Left foot takes foot traveling on. Follow the drinking gourd.
These lines told the slaves to follow the riverbank of the Tombigbee River, watching for dead trees which had on them 2 drawings, one of a left foot and one of a peg leg. Following the river, watching for these drawings on dead trees, and walking towards the drinking gourd, led north to freedom. The next part of the song is,
the river ends between 2 hills. Follow the drinking gourd. There's another river on the other side. Follow the drinking gourd.
These lines told the slaves that when the river ended, they were to keep walking towards the drinking gourd while going over the hills to the next river. Then they were to continue north along the New River. The New River was the Tennessee River. Finally, the song ends.
When the great big river meets the little river, follow the drinking gourd, for the old man is awaiting for to carry you to freedom if you follow the drinking gourd.
This means follow the Tennessee River north until it meets the Ohio River. At this point, someone will meet the slaves and help them. Let's all sing the song together.
When the sun comes back and the first quail calls, follow the drinking gourd, for the old man is awaiting for to carry you to freedom if you follow the drinking gourd. Follow the drinking gourd, follow the drinking gourd, for the old man is awaiting for to carry you to freedom if you follow the drinking gourd. The river bank makes a very good road. The dead trees will show you the way. Left foot head foot traveling on. Follow the drinking gourd. Follow the drinking gourd. Follow the drinking gourd, for the old man is awaiting for to carry you to freedom if you follow the drinking gourd. The river ends between two hills. Follow the drinking gourd. There's another river on the other side. Follow the drinking gourd. Follow the drinking gourd. Follow the drinking gourd, for the old man is awaiting for to carry you to freedom if you follow the drinking gourd. When the great big river meets the little river, follow the drinking gourd, for the old man is awaiting for to carry you to freedom if you follow the drinking gourd.
Using this song, thousands of slaves escaped north to Canada to freedom. This is a story of one family and its flight to freedom. Long ago, before the Civil War, there was an old sailor called Peg-Leg Joe who did what he could to help free the slaves. Joe had a plan. He'd use hammer and saw and work for the master, the man who owned the slaves on the cotton plantation. Joe had a plan. At night, when work was done, he'd teach the slaves a song that secretly told the way to freedom. Just follow the drinking gourd, it said. When the song was learned and sung all day, Peg-Leg Joe would slip away to work for another master and teach the song again. One day, a slave called Molly saw her man James sold to another master.
What am I bid this fine young slave?
James would be taken away, their family torn apart. Just one more night together. A quail called in the trees that night. Molly and James remembered Joe's song. They sang it low.
When the sun comes back and the first quail calls, follow the drinking gourd, for the old man is awaiting for to carry you to freedom if you follow the drinking gourd.
They looked to the sky and saw the stars. Taking their little son Isaiah, old Hattie and her grandson George, Molly and James set out for freedom that very night, following the stars of the drinking gourd. They ran all night through the fields till they crossed the stream to the woods. When daylight came, they hid in the trees, watching, listening for the master's hounds set loose to find them. But the dogs lost the runaway scent at the stream, and Molly and James and Isaiah, old Hattie and young George, were not found. They hid all day in the woods. At night they walked again, singing Joe's song and looking for the signs that marked the trail.
The riverbanks make a very good road. The dead trees will show you the way. Left foot, peg foot, traveling on. Follow the drinking gourd.
Walking by night, sleeping by day, for weeks they traveled on. Sometimes berries to pick and corn to snatch, sometimes fish to catch, sometimes empty bellies to sleep on, sometimes no stars to guide the way. They never knew what lay ahead. There was danger from the men who would send them back, and danger from the hungry beasts. But sometimes a kind deed was done. One day, as they hid in a thicket, a boy from a farm found them. In a bag of feed for the hogs in the woods, he brought bacon and cornbread to share. Singing low, they traveled on.
The river ends between two hills. Follow the drinking gourd. There's another river on the other side. Follow the drinking gourd.
On and on, they followed the trail to the river's end. From the top of the hill, they saw the new path, and another river beneath the stars could lead them to freedom's land. The drinking gourd led them on. The song was almost done.
When the great big river meets the little river, follow the drinking gourd. For the old man is awaiting for to carry you to freedom if you follow the drinking gourd.
Then they climbed the last hill. Down below was Peg-Leg Joe, waiting at the wide Ohio River to carry them across. Their spirits rose when they saw the old man. Molly and James and Isaiah, old Hattie and George, ran to the shore. Under a starry sky, Joe rowed them across the wide Ohio River. He told them of hiding places where they would be safe. A path of houses stretched like a train on a secret path leading north to Canada. He called it the Underground Railroad. It carried riders to freedom. The first safe house stood on the hill. The lamp was lit, which meant it was safe to come. Ragged and weary, they waited while Joe signaled low, with a hoot like an owl. Then the door opened wide to welcome the freedom travelers. They were rushed through the house to the barn, for the farmers knew there were slave catchers here. A trapdoor in the floor took them under the barn to hide until it was safe to move on. Then Peg-Leg Joe went back to the river to meet others who followed the drinking gourd. With danger still near, too close for ease, the farmer sent the 5 travelers on. He drew a map that showed the way north on the midnight road to the next safe house, just over 2 hills. This time James called the signal, a hoot like an owl, that opened the door to a Quaker farm. The travelers were led to a secret room hidden behind shelves. They rested here for many days and healed their wounds. Soft beds, full meals, new clothes, hot baths, washed away some fear and pain. Isaiah smiled. When they were strong, they traveled again, from house to house on the underground trail, still following the drinking gourd north. Sometimes they traveled on foot, sometimes by cart. The wagon they rode near their journey's end carried fruit to the market, and the runaways to freedom. At last, they came to the shores of Lake Erie. Molly and James and Isaiah, old Hattie and young George climbed aboard the steamship that would carry them across to Canada, to freedom. 5 more souls are safe, old Hattie cried. The sun shone bright when they stepped on land. They had followed the drinking gourd.